Welcome to the channel. Yes, welcome to the channel. I'm Jeremy Stevens. This channel is gonna be all about entrepreneurship, finance, real estate, marriage. No, that's too many topics. More so all about money. I'm an entrepreneur here in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I've been very excited to get this started. I have over 100,000 followers on Instagram, and so it's like, why am I just on one platform? Why don't I share my knowledge with the masses? So here I am. Welcome to my channel. Be sure to like and subscribe because as you all know, that's the only way we grow. So sit back, enjoy the content, and I'm excited to bring it to you weekly, daily, whatever the frequency is. I'm here for the people. Thank you guys for tuning in, and let's get right into it. Hi, my name is Jeremy Stevens and welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be all about rental arbitrage and how this has allowed me to scale in the real estate at a very, very fast pace. So I'm going to be breaking down all the tips and tricks and knowledge that I've gained throughout this whole process. I started off with 0 just a year ago and now I'm all the way up to 30 units. And so I'm going to tell you exactly what rental arbitrage is and how you too can do the same. Question number 1. What the heck is rental arbitrage? So rental arbitrage is a technique that I've used, and basically it's where you do not own this unit, you don't own this apartment, you don't own this house, but you do run a business out of this place. So with that being said, so if I were to go into a random apartment complex, let's say it's in a downtown area, and I walk into the front lobby and say, hey, I'm looking to do a corporate lease. That's basically telling the apartment that I'm looking to run a business out of this place and I'm looking to rent it out just as if I'm a normal renter. But then I can place these listings on certain platforms like Airbnb, FurnishFinder.com. And so then I can then gain bookings and then obviously I can rent it out for a profit. So it's known as a corporate lease, but in a nutshell, it's basically where you don't own this place, but you do run a business out of there and make money. So that is what rental arbitrage is. What money did you use to get started in rental arbitrage? So I'm very, very big on business credit cards. So a lot of times these institutions will have 0% interest credit cards over the first 12 months. And so I'll use that to buy furniture. I'll use that to buy different things that I need for the apartment, etc. And so I'm not using my own cash. Also, business lines of credit, same thing. It's almost like a glorified credit card though. So not only, I can still go to Amazon and put it on a credit card if it's just a credit card, but for a business line of credit, I can also use it for same as cash. So moving costs, etc. I can use that business line of credit for that very reason. And then also private investors as well. I'll give them a return on their investment. And then none of this mentions ever using my own cash because I'm big on using OPM, which is other people's money. Next question, is rental arbitrage allowed everywhere? The answer is no. That's why you do have to do your own due diligence. You have to go into these, maybe it's an apartment complex. Maybe you find a rental home on Zillow to where it's a private landlord and you just reach out to them and say, hey, look, I'm looking to do a corporate rental. Or do you allow this? And they'll automatically know that you're going to be looking to run a business out of their establishment for profit. So no, not everybody allows it, but for the people who do, you can go ahead and scale up. Next question is, who is your main clientele? So for me, I do a little bit of mixture. I do have a couple Airbnbs in my portfolio, but I would say the bulk of the out of my 30 units, I think about 28 of them are fully occupied by traveling healthcare professionals, most of them being travel nurses. Especially if you live in an area where there's a lot of major hospitals. Unfortunately, people will always be sick, and right now, especially over the past, I would say, decade, there's been a huge shortage in healthcare workers. So that means the traveling healthcare professionals have really, really ramped up, especially in my market. So my main clientele is traveling healthcare professionals. Next question is going to be, how do the tenants find me? So I place my listings on a platform called FurnishFinder.com and also Airbnb. Those are my two main platforms. FurnishFinder almost acts like a middleman. So the tenants are seeking hosts, being myself. They're able to reach out to me directly, and then everything after that is handled off the platform. So I'm able to send them contract lease agreements. I'm able to send over like payment instructions on how they're able to pay me. So FurnishFinder is essentially just like a middleman, and they're able to pay me directly. And then I also use Airbnb Airbnb is obviously the most popular when it comes to this. It's more so just ran like a glorified hotel, except for you do have to fully furnish everything, unlike a hotel. Most Airbnbs will have like kitchens and stuff like that. So I fully furnish everything, and Airbnb, unlike Furnish Finder, everything is actually done through Airbnb. So when the customer pays Airbnb, Airbnb then pays me versus the customer pays me, the host, directly. So they're a little bit different, but kind of both act as the same thing. All right, next up is how long are the tenants typically staying? So for my traveling healthcare professionals, they're staying typically on a 13-week contract. Oftentimes, sometimes they will extend, and sometimes they'll be here for another 3 months. But typically they work in 13-week contracts. And then for Airbnb, again, this is pretty much ranges like a hotel. So sometimes people stay for a night, some people stay for 7 nights. It just really just depends on your availability that you have on your calendar. But I personally prefer, the longer stays just because there's not as much turnover. How much does it cost to furnish an entire unit? So for me, my bread and butter is 1 bed, 1 bath. So that typically costs anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 for furnishings per unit. And now granted, you can do the same technique for a 10-bedroom house with 5 bathrooms. So it just depends on what you prefer. But for me, I like to stick with what I know, my 1 bedroom, 1 bath. So anywhere between $2,000 to $3,000 per unit. All right, next up, how do you keep track of all your tenants? Because I do have 30 apartments, I have to be extremely organized. So my wife has this big spreadsheet for me to where I'm filling in like their apartment numbers and their names and when they move in, when they move out, how much their rent is, etc. So I definitely have to stay very, very organized because with having 30 apartments, that means I'm collecting, rents 30 times. So I have to be very, very organized and make sure that my P's and Q's and my I's are dotted and my T's are crossed because I don't want anybody to just accidentally forget to pay me rent just because I'm not organized on my end. So spreadsheets to the rescue. Next up, what amenities are these tenants looking for? So more so on the traveling healthcare side, I'll start on that side and then I'll go to the Airbnb. So the tenants on the traveling healthcare professional side are definitely looking for a safe place, a clean place, and a soft pillow to rest their head. They're not looking for much. They're working 12-hour shifts, so they just want to come home to a nice, safe place. On the Airbnb side, this is where you're going to attract a lot of, traveling guests. So they're looking for a pool, they're looking for pool tables, they're looking for all these luxury amenities, and that's kind of what's going to separate your listing from somebody who doesn't have those things. So think about putting games in your apartment or putting, a game system in there as well. The more amenities, the better for the Airbnb side. Next question is, what negatives have you seen from rental arbitrage? So obviously, the first and foremost, the number one negative is that you don't own it. So you do have to abide by all the rules of either the private landlord or the apartment complex or what have you. So with not owning something, ultimately, yes, you are running a business, but it's still their building. So you have to abide by their rules at all times. And so that's number one. That's the number one negative. In that same breath, you are making money there. So it's kind of like, yeah, I don't own it, but I'm also making money here. So, but I would say, ultimately it is a branch of real estate, but you are not building any type of equity, quite literally just because you don't own it. All right, next up is, would I consider this to be passive income? I feel that nothing in life is truly passive because you do have to do some type of work for pretty much everything. I would call this semi-passive because I don't have to actively clean anymore because I have cleaners who do that. I don't have to actively, go check on the property, etc. But I do have to every now and then put out a fire here and there, and I do have to make sure that I'm collecting the payments on time. And for any new nurse or new traveling professional who's coming on board, I do have to make sure that I send the contract lease agreements out for signatures of that nature. So I would call it semi-passive, but I can't call it passive, no. Next question is, if you were starting out in real estate tomorrow, would I suggest going this route first? Versus maybe just like flipping a house for a profit and putting it on the market for a sale. I would say I would probably start here only because if you know, let's say cash is you know, on the lower side for you, it's a good way to build up profits, and maybe you can use that cash for an emergency fund or just to have, etc. I would say the barrier for entry for rental arbitrage is a lot lower versus trying to buy an actual home, and it's just a quick way to start making some quick income. So I would probably start here. Next up are what are the biggest positives for rental arbitrage? So number one positive is, especially if you're in a market to where there's a lot of tourists and there's a lot of traveling and there's a lot of major hospitals, it's pretty quote unquote easy to make money in this industry just because the demand is so high. Back in high school, we learned about supply and demand, and right now this is in high demand. Who knows if this will be around forever, but it's been pretty cool and neat to catch the wave while it is here. Next up, since your primary clientele are all travel nurses, is this technique sustainable? It kind of goes back on the last question. It's sustainable right now. Obviously, none of us can predict the future, but all I do know is, especially when it comes to healthcare, unfortunately, people will always be sick. And unfortunately, there is a huge shortage in the healthcare sector. And so right now, travel nursing, and not just today, it's been like that for the past decade, travel nursing has been very prominent, and it has not shown any signs of slowing down. And last question is, what do you do with your profits each month? As I already mentioned, I do have business credit cards and business lines of credit, so I will take a percentage of those profits and pay those down. Then the rest, I put it to my kids' college fund, and then also just to live life and enjoy the fruits of my labor. So that's what I do with the profits. And yeah, that's it. That wraps up today's video about rental arbitrage. This is how you get out of the rat race and level up.